Shaner.
Here.
Scott.
Aye. Here.
Berenstein.
Here.
Bertrand. Here. Rayford.
Here. Please stand for a moment of silent prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Denise Gutierrez. We have a proclamation that reads, whereas the strength of our nation, along with its states and cities, flows from the promise of individual equality, access to decent, safe, and affordable housing, and a part of the American dream. And whereas April 26 marks the 58th anniversary of the passage of Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968 as amended, better known as the Fair Housing Act, which declares that discrimination in the sale, rental, or financing of housing based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, familiar status, or disability is unlawful. And whereas shelter is a basic human need and the quality of life is significantly diminished when individuals face discrimination based on irrelevant factors. It is essential that America, the state of Iowa, and the city of Sioux City be rededicated to the policy of ensuring that housing is available to all individuals on the basis of equality and fairness. Now, therefore, I, Robert E. Scott, Mayor of the City of Sioux City, Iowa, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 26 as Fair Housing Month in Sioux City, Iowa, and urge all citizens to support and endorse the daily practice and policy of fair housing and reaffirm their commitment to fair housing opportunities for all. I'd like to present this to you and say a few words if you'd like. Go ahead.
On behalf of the Northwest Iowa Board of Realtors, myself, Chris Delphs, the president, Denise Gutierrez, our executive officer, and Eric Hoke, our vice president, want to thank Mayor Bob Scott for endorsing the proclamation. We believe fair housing is important and critical to our communities as a whole, and wanted to make a point and honor Fair Housing Month and the Civil Rights Act of 1968. And continue on with that mission by reaffirming that in our community we support fair housing. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to interviews. The Library Board of Trustees, James Hodgins first. Come up and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve.
Hi, I'm James Hodgins.
Hi, James.
Hi.
How are you?
Guys? Pretty good. Oh, I kind of want to serve because I really care about the library. I like it a lot, and you know, there's been some problems with it recently coming up. You know, that's it.
All right, questions?
Just what's your background with regard to, is it use of libraries? Have you?
Oh, I worked there for 6 years or so.
The Sioux City Library?
Yeah, the Sioux City Public Library.
Great, thank you.
So what are the problems that have come up?
Well, no problems really. It's just that the budget seems to be mismanaged to some degree.
You feel like you got some budget management experience?
Yeah, I'm on the board of trustees at my church, and we kind of deal with the same thing all the time, you know, deciding what things need spending and vote on all that.
Thanks for your interest.
All right, thank you. Next is Shannon Jorstead. Shannon, come up, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to serve.
The podium is fine.
Either one.
Either one works.
I'm Shannon Jorstead. I am interested in the Board of Trustees position. I've been in the Friends of the Library Board for 6 years. I've learned a lot through that time, and I'm interested into going the next step into it. I'm interested in the best needs of the community, what best helps Sioux City, get into the library, use the library and what the library provides for the city. I've grown up using the Sioux City Library. I've taken my children there. been to the activities and events, and I think it's a great organization, and I would like to pursue that.
Shannon and I had some I thought, very healthy conversations during the budget cycle, and thought she provided a really strong perspective, as did Linda when she approaches. And I think you bring a relatively unique perspective and a broad perspective.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Santee.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Linda.
Linda Santee. Should I answer the question why I want to?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
You can use that in your whole opener.
Okay, thank you. So I care about libraries a good deal. I care about this library. I grew up with this library. Smith Villa was I'm showing my age. Smith Villa was my library branch. I have a passion for libraries. I think that as we get further into the 21st century, the things that libraries can do for a community, for economic development, workforce development, social services, as well as literacy and community organizing and community efforts is incredibly important. I have worked with a library system in New Orleans. I was there in '05 when the levees broke, and I was working for the New Orleans Public Library System at the time, so I've been part of a rebuilding of a library system. We had 13 branches, and all but 3 were completely destroyed. So I've worked with national library folk from the ALA who came in, and the first convention in New Orleans after the federal flood of '05 was librarians. And so I've gotten even a national perspective on libraries. And when we rebuilt in New Orleans, it was with a real look toward the future and a way in which services could be improved with a look toward the finances. And so I want to bring those skills and talents to the Sioux City Public Library, where I am probably at a whole lot of meetings, checking out books. I'm at that library a lot.
As I mentioned with Shannon, I had a chance to talk to Linda regularly during the 2-3 week period of the budget cycle, and valued her perspective, and to James as well. This is a unique situation where we have 3 really good candidates for one spot now, but as I was mentioning to Linda earlier, I know there's another spot that becomes available later during the cycle. So,
well, and it's shows that people do care about the library, and it shows that the conversation that you all opened for the community to think about was really important and helpful, and it's brought forth strong people to move forward. I would say I've had experience with picking, being part of teams that have chosen various departments and divisions, particularly in New Orleans, a new police chief, a new Park and Recs, Youth Commission, and the mayors tend to, for those instances, put together task forces to be part of a selection process. And so I feel this is with no slight to Helen, it just represents a changing of the guard and an opportunity to really bring some fresh ideas to the library system. And because I have experience in that, I would very much look forward to being part of that process also.
I'm reminded when we had our candidate town hall, one of your questions was, and so I know you have a love for the library and other departments, so thank you for stepping up to that.
And I'll just, to finish, thank you, Councilmember Rayford. One of my questions at the League of Women Voters Town Hall was, how do you use the Art Center, the museum, and the library, and can you name the directors of those 3 city divisions? So, yes, thanks for remembering.
absolutely.
All right.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Linda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go on to the consent agenda items through,
You have one more interview.
oh, I'm sorry, Chad Smith, sorry. I want to get out of here today, Chad, sorry.
You don't need to introduce, other than for the record, you don't need to introduce yourself.
I'm Chad Smith, and I am candidate for the Parking and Skywalk Board of Trustees.
Sir, could you move that mic up a little bit? You're just taller than the rest of us.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Nope, not a problem. Reason I am applying for this position was I was asked by some members of the community to be on the board because obviously our company manages the convention center. So we're directly connected to the Skywalk and to the parking ramps around the convention center. So we have an interest in the parking systems and the Skywalk, not just for use as a manager in the city of one of your facilities, but also as someone who goes downtown to attend events, eat at restaurants, and enjoy the amenities of our community.
Well, and you can experience what they experience.
Yep.
Right? Very good.
Questions?
Nope.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks for adding that to your plate.
Now I will go to the consent agenda, which is items 3 through 17. I constitute a consent agenda. Items pass unanimously unless a separate roll call vote is requested by a council member. Anyone wishing to speak on the agenda item may come to the podium at the time the item is being discussed. If you want to speak on an item not under the agenda, please come up under citizen concerns. I'll move that.
I will second that, but as I do so, Mayor, can I ask, I want item 11A, and then I need to abstain on a couple of items in 14 and 16. Should I ask that those be pulled from the consent agenda or just note those at the time that Mayor reads those items?
You may note that at the time the mayor.
Okay, but can I ask that 11A comes out of the consent agenda?
Do you
So-
like to have it pulled for a separate roll
For
call
separate
vote?
discussion, yep.
We can do that when we get to it.
Okay,
You second.
go ahead. Yeah, I already seconded it.
I just had a question on on item number 3, the minutes.
I had a comment too, yep.
Okay. Reading of the March 18th, 23rd, and 30th City Council minutes. We need to amend it first for items 6 and 7. It says Siouxland Explorer. It should say Explore Siouxland. I'll move that.
I'll second that amendment.
On the amendment, Scott? Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
I have one other noted correction or amendment on pages 16 and 17. It notes me as exiting the meeting at 12:26 and returning at 12:28. Then about a couple of items later, it has me exiting at 12:25 and returning at 12:27. I do remember leaving, but couldn't have left at both times and returned at both times.
Which set of minutes is that?
That would-
That's got to be the budget minutes, correct?
The 18, yeah, March 18th.
Okay.
So either delete the 12:25, returning at 12:27, which is the second. That's why it caught me, because as I was reading through them, I know it had me exiting at 12:26, returning at 12:28. Then it had me exiting at 12:25 and returning at 12:27, and I don't think I could have been in two places at once.
Okay,
So either, as far as I'm concerned, you can delete either one.
okay.
So I'll move that amendment as well.
Second.
Okay. Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Thank you.
You have something?
Yeah, I had one on, I think it's item 26 where the police capital equipment, on there on the vote, motion by Scott, second by Shaner, to increase that fortune. But then it says Bernstein, Bertrand, Rayford, Shaner, Scott voting aye, but then it says Rayford voting nay.
Okay.
Twice sometimes, but.
Need a second?
Second.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott? Berenstein?
Aye.
4 is a motion appointing Meredith Lehman to the Human Rights Commission. 5 is a resolution scheduling a hearing on the adoption of the annual budget and the capital improvement program. 6 is a resolution temporary closing sections of 24th Street, Grandview Boulevard, McDonald Street, and Summit Street on July 4th and 5th for Saturday in the Park Festival. 7 are actions relating to grants. A is a resolution approving an interlocal agreement with Woodbury County for submission of an application for the Burn Justice Assistant Grant Program funds.
So is there anybody here on this item? So it's $60,488. Have you already designated the use of those funds?
Ryan Bertrand, Captain, Sioux City PD. They are not hard designated, but tentatively, yes.
Thanks.
B is a resolution approving a Transportation Alternatives Program agreement with Simcoe MPO for the Viaduct Connector Trail Phase 2. C is a resolution authorizing submission of a grant application to the EDA Disaster Supplemental Grant Program for the development of an innovation center. I have a question on that I should have asked. We put a lot of money out for this building, and we have spent a lot of money maintaining this building, and we're going to spend a lot of money maintaining this building for a while. Do we get our money back?
Renee Billings, Economic Development Manager. As part of the project, we have an LOU with Innovate Siouxland that provides the building as part of the project. If they were to ever sell it in the future, we would get our money back at that time.
You're sure that's in the agreement?
Well, yeah, we have an LOU. We don't have a set agreement with them yet, but when it comes to development, yes.
I think that's terribly important.
Okay.
Renee, I don't necessarily think you need to do it today because I know we're trying to move through the consent agenda, but I think this is an important enough project, and to the mayor's point, there are some technical pieces to the acquisition and how we're seeking funding, both with regard to this grant and also I think private funding, as you and I've talked about as members of the board. I think maybe if you want to work with Mike and get this on the agenda for a presentation maybe in the next couple of weeks, I think it would be helpful for the council and the public to better understand the total scope of the project.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
8 are actions relating to civil penalties and suspensions. A is a resolution scheduling a hearing on a proposed civil penalty against Love's Travel Stop number 479 for violation of the Iowa cigarette laws. B is a resolution scheduling a hearing on a proposed civil penalty and 30-day suspension for Sky High Smoke Shop and Vape Cigarette Permit for violation of the Iowa cigarette laws. 9 are actions adopting construction documents. A is a resolution adopting plans and specs for the Taxiway C and associated areas rehabilitation project at the airport. B is a resolution adopting plans and specs for the Lorraine Avenue resurfacing project. C is a resolution adopting plans and specs for the sidewalk ramp project. 10 are actions relating to agreements and contracts. A is a resolution approving an order form and end user license agreement with Ninja One. B is a resolution approving a contract to AG Construction for the annual sidewalk program project.
So in approving 10B, or excuse me, 10, I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, I have another question. Go ahead, sorry.
Resolution approving a contract to KP Construction for the manhole replacement project. Is that the one you wanted?
No, I was looking at a different item. It'll come up. Thank you.
Okay. D is a resolution approving a contract to Sioux City Engineering for the Big Sioux River erosion repair project. E is a resolution approving a contract to Knife River Midwest for the Lions Park Investment Area sidewalk improvement. All of those projects but one came in under budget. This is why we need to bid projects, because nobody's got work out there. I mean, for Knife River to bid a sidewalk project tells you there's no work out there.
And
F is a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Doc Access for an accessible document tool. G is a resolution approving a service provider agreement with Sir Lines a Lot for the street paving and striping project. This is another one that we go 5 years and we don't bid. Now we bid it and it's half price basically from what it's been, right? Who's got this one? Maybe a reason we don't give them extension after extension after extension.
Patrick Simons, Field Services Manager. Yeah, I think after evaluation, that's what we looked at, and that's why we did put it out for bid, and that's the intent moving forward.
But that was like 5 or 6 years worth. The other guys had it before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my same comment. Thanks, Mayor. You look at some of these projects and you look at a project from one year to the next and whether they're rebid or not, and I had the same comment. Thank you.
Very good.
H is a resolution approving amendment number 2 to the consulting services agreement with McClure Engineering for the Skywalk Assessment Study Project. I is a resolution approving amendment number 2 to the consulting services agreement with EOC Environmental Group for the Pulaski Drainage Improvement Project. J is a resolution approving a security agreement assignment of development agreement between Badrel developer, Badrel owner, and Premier Bank National Association, 622 4th Street. K is a resolution approving a post-construction stormwater management plan maintenance agreement and easement with Apache View Townhomes for a detention basin and accepting a permanent easement of 2606 Apache Court. L is a resolution approving a post-construction stormwater management plan maintenance agreement and easement with Westland Property Management Development for a detention pond and accepting a permanent easement at 2513 Heinrich Court. M is a resolution approving a post-construction stormwater management plan maintenance agreement and easement with Quality Realty for a detention basin, accepting a permanent easement, 2700 Boulevard of Champions. 11 are action.
Mayor, Nicole, can you check? In looking at the agreement, it looks as if it's to be signed by their treasurer. Is the treasurer authorized to sign an agreement?
I'd ask Era if she confirmed that. A lot of times we get an email from the entity indicating that that's an authorized signature for the agreement.
Who's the treasurer? I know all these guys. Who's the?
Era Montang, Environmental Engineering, or Environmental Services. Yeah, they usually just have somebody from their board sign it. We have had treasurers in the past sign it.
Do we need to get a resolution from their board that authorizes who's signing that document? I would just hate to.
We have not in the past.
He's the guy that handles all the stuff for him, I can tell you that.
Maybe.
Trying to find it, I apologize.
Just wonder if we have a
Tim
resolution, even
Bauer.
if it's a past resolution that authorizes the treasurer to sign from their board.
I think I'd take the agreement. This thing's been built for 25 years and you're now just getting a, but.
For that, the quality? No, well, so Sioux City Tarp went in next to that, and they're sharing a drainage ditch type situation, so that's why we're having them sign that. And then we'll have one for the Sioux City Tarp coming as well. We're just waiting on one document.
Just saying, these guys didn't have to sign an agreement because you.
Probably not. So we're trying to go back and get a lot of those from like the last 5 years, but that's why this one's on there, is because since that new building went in next to it, they have a shared detention system.
It looks like it's Tim Bauer. Maybe Nicole, if you could just check with your team and make sure that it's authorized there's a resolution authorizing him to sign on their
I would
behalf.
just, Era, if you could reach out and ask them
Yeah.
to send that to us.
That'd be great. Thank you.
You want just like an email from,
If you could just confirm it and confirm with Nicole, that's fine. If all of a sudden we find out that there's not a resolution authorizing him to sign that document as treasurer, then we need to have it signed differently.
Sure, and the officers are listed on the Secretary of State's page, but we do not have a separate resolution.
Again,
You can get that.
my experience would sort of be that the treasurer would not necessarily be authorized to sign this kind of a document. If he or she is, that's fine.
Yeah.
But just typically a treasurer wouldn't in their organizational documents.
yeah, I'll reach out to them.
Okay, thank you.
11 are actions relating to personnel. A is a resolution appointing Michael Collette as the city manager and approving an employment agreement.
Can I ask that we pull this out? Mm-hmm. I want to pull it out because I want to make the motion. I think we probably all want to have a little bit of dialogue. Mike, I want to make the motion because I think you've done a great job in the interim. I think you've done a really nice job balancing, when the prior council had looked to hire somebody different, that didn't necessarily work out, and I think things tend to happen for a reason, and I think we were very fortunate. I know that the prior council had made the decision to wait until after this budget cycle and was comfortable with the new council, and I think you've done a great job. I think what's important to recognize is that this is not a status quo appointment, and that we have significant expectations of you and from you to continue to work with your team and with the city and take us to another level. And I'm very comfortable with the appointment, and that's why I'd like to make the motion.
To pull it for a separate vote, just for clarification, there's no motion needed. So in the minutes, it'll just cite that you pulled it.
Okay?
Are we ready?
What?
That there's no motion.
I was going to say you're just pulling.
Yeah. Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand?
Aye.
B is a resolution of amending the position classification manual by approving an updated.
Mr. Mayor, can we defer 11B? I know all it is Janelle, are you in here? Yeah. That's just a job description update, isn't it? On that?
Let me finish job description for the position of police chief. Go ahead.
Yeah. That's all it is, right? You know
Janelle
what?
Bertrand, Human Resources Director.
I just haven't had a chance to really look at it, and there's some comparative things that I want to look at, so if we can just pull
Sure.
it, come back. It's not, I know it's not urgent, but I wouldn't mind taking a peek at it.
Yep, you should see a tracked changes and a clean change.
That's what I'm looking for.
And all
I
job
got some
descriptions do come to
comparative.
council.
Thank you.
Okay.
How long would you like to defer?
Can we go 3 weeks?
Would you like, we could delete it and then bring it back?
Let's do that,
fresh?
please.
Okay.
Do I have a second for deletion?
I will.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Thank you.
12 are actions authorizing payments. A is a resolution authorizing payment to Triple D Contracting for the demolition of the 2928, 2930 Gordon Drive project. Darrell, you got 2 down, you got 1 to go.
Are they still willing participants?
Excuse me, Darrell Bullock, Inspection Services Manager. The new owners are are once again in communication with us, and they are willing to get that taken care of. They've got them on the market to be sold, so they're not looking to get into all the details that it takes to take a gas station down. So we are. As far as answer your question, Mayor, we're probably 80% done with the other one. Tanks are out. Samples have been taken. We're waiting for samples back from the
Yes, I was
DNR,
by there. I saw
but
the
Morningside
tank.
Avenue is almost gone.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Very good.
All right, thanks. B is a resolution approving a partial settlement of a tort claim and authorizing payment, Zachary Davis. C is a resolution amending resolution number 2026-0195, authorizing payment to HR Construction for the new utilities field office building project. D is a resolution authorizing payment to Ferguson Water Works for the annual fee associated with Neptune 360 water meter reading software. 13 are actions relating to assessments. A is a resolution fixing the amount to be assessed against private property, adopting and leveling a schedule of assessment for the weed abatement program. B is a resolution fixing the amounts to be assessed against private properties and adopting and levying a schedule of assessments for the April nuisance abatement program and authorizing civil actions. C is a resolution fixing the amount to be assessed against private property and adopting and levying a schedule of assessments for the sidewalk snow removal program. 14 is purchasing. A is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Jensen Motors for 1 Dodge Durango all-wheel drive vehicle.
Can you show me as abstaining on 14A, please?
B is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Jensen Motors for 1 Ford regular cab pickup.
Can you show me as abstaining on 14B as well, please?
C is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Ed Stivers Ford for 1 Maverick all-wheel drive Super Crew pickup. D is a resolution awarding a purchase order to Stu Hansen Dodge Jeep City for 1 Ram tradesman pickup.
Mayor, on 14D, I think we should invoke our council privilege that the difference is 2% or less, and we prefer to buy local.
I'll second that.
So we would purchase from Jensen as well.
Scott?
Aye.
Berenstein?
Abstain.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
15 are applications for cigarette, tobacco, nicotine, vapor product permits. 16 are applications for alcohol license. 17 is board, commission, and committee.
On the applications under, are you just reading 16 or are you at 17?
I read 16 and 17, but if you got to go back, just.
Can you just show me as abstaining on item 16A, 3A?
Yes.
I need to abstain on 16.
16,
On mine, Nicole?
for Councilman Rayford's A1B. Thank you.
A1B, yeah.
Voting electronically. Five oh. Recommendations of Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment. At 18 is a motion of acknowledging the Board of Adjustment actions of March 21st, 4th. I'll move that.
Second. Oops, sorry.
We need more liquor licenses, huh?
Put them right next to Carla.
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Shaner, I'm just missing your electronic vote.
Sorry. Oh, I didn't mean to hit nay, I mean to hit yay.
What's her problem?
Call the roll.
We'll try one more time. I'm going to call it this time. Bear with me. All right, we're doing a revote on number 18. Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
There you go.
We can't take her anywhere.
First time for everything.
I always am remiss. What are the guys from Halen? You don't have school today. What are you doing here today? Oh,
Harry?
I didn't think it was because you really wanted to learn about government. Good to see you, though. Thanks for coming. 19 is a hearing an ordinance dedicating and naming a portion of the unnamed right-of-way adjacent to 2702 Adele Street as Adele Street. The petitioner recommends, P&Z recommends approval. I'll move it.
Second.
Public hearing's now open.
Michelle Bosnellis, Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we recommended approval. There weren't any public comments at the time of the meeting.
So Michelle, why does this happen? A triangle's shaped lot like that doesn't?
I'm going to probably refer to Chris over here to come up and tell you why it happened.
I have no opposition. I'm just curious how this can happen.
Chris Madison, Planning Manager. It's an item that very likely the plat was approved late 1800s.
Okay.
And the street was changed.
Anybody
at one
here
point beyond
that would have been there for that?
And the platting, the dedication was just never followed up on. So
Okay.
we're looking to include that lot in our RFP for infill lots. So we're cleaning some of this up as we're going through.
Good. Okay, thanks, Chris.
Anyone else be heard? Hearing's closed. Passes 5-0. Is anybody opposed to waiving the statutory rule?
No.
I'll move second, third.
Second. You gotta move to waive the statutory.
I'll move to waive the rules.
Bertrand?
Aye.
Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Berenstein?
Aye, and I'll move to waive second and third.
Second.
Rayford? Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand?
Aye.
20 is a hearing and ordinance rezoning 1,000 Morningside Avenue. The petitioner is Gur Kerpa. P&Z recommends approval. Somebody else can move it. I don't move liquor store.
I'll move it.
Second.
Hearing's now open.
So, Oh, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I was just going to say, the recommendation was from the planning and zoning was to approve it, and there wasn't anyone at the meeting to provide comments.
So this is to have on-site consumption?
No.
No, this is for them to sell liquor at their
Oh,
store.
they
so,
absolutely.
right?
To go.
I thought the material said they could sell, but they were looking for on-site.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No.
I may have read it incorrect.
No, 'cause it's
Okay.
just the-
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
my question was going to be, where would they be consuming? Because that, to me, would open up a pretty significant opportunity throughout the community for other similar but this is just
Yeah.
to simply sell alcohol. Okay.
That was our understanding.
Very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Suburban commercial does not allow any liquor store.
Yeah, Gabriel, for your city planning, so it's to do off-site selling of alcohol.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Anyone else to be heard? Hearing is closed. Just for the record, Des Moines did a study on this a few years ago, and every place that these type of operations go, it does have a negative impact on residential neighborhoods, and I haven't voted for one. I'm not voting for one today. Passes 4-0. I vote no. I'm opposed to waiving the statutory rule. We're moving on.
Okay. If we're waiting to move second and third, can we see that study from Des Moines?
Yeah, we had it around here, remember? Somebody had that way back when. It was about 3 or 4 years ago. Des Moines did a big study on that. Yeah, it was gas stations. It was a big
I know,
study.
but the last one, it was on the corner of Morningside Avenue. It wasn't a residential neighborhood.
This is right in a residential neighborhood.
I know, but you didn't vote for the last one, you said, but that was at a,
I didn't vote for any of these. Well, I don't know if I did. If I missed it, I shouldn't have.
We can pull that study and.
Yeah, I'd be
get a
curious to
memo
see the study.
council. Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
And give a
That was-
history of how our code has changed.
Wasn't that
well.
because they don't carry dram? Is that why?
no. It's
No,
because
it's
in
just
a
because
suburban
they were,
residential.
it was like car lots in
Like
Sioux
for-
City. They were getting them everywhere in Des Moines, and it was starting to be a problem.
Yes, but this.
Well, and I know years ago, probably 20 years ago, we looked at different commercial businesses and to Julie's point, in residential neighborhoods that were requesting to be able to sell cigarettes. And because they were in residential zones where there were lots of children, we had an opposition to selling cigarettes from commercial properties.
The last one that asked for this zoning change was where Horizon is now, same owner, on the corner of Morningside Avenue and where the old Ben Franklin was. That's not a residential.
That's dating us a little bit.
Right.
To know where Ben
Yeah,
Franklin.
but that's consumption. That one
But
is
they-
consumption.
Correct, but you can also take a beer to go if you want to there, to that point.
Right.
But, and it's not a detriment to the neighborhood. They're after hours, they're having dinner, they're trying to survive with their business, and their customers are asking for beer or wine to go with their meal.
Completely different set of circumstances.
But it's
anyway,
the same zoning and the same license.
21's a hearing and resolution approving no, it's not the same.
Well,
license.
it's a
Not
to-go
even
license,
close.
but it's still liquor license.
Approving a dark fiber master lease agreement with IMON Communications. Staff requests a motion to defer the hearing till April 13th. I'll move that deferral.
Second.
And just for clarification, we're waiting on the updated bond. We don't have a current bond to proceed at this time.
Shaner.
Aye.
Scott. Berenstein.
Aye.
Bertrand.
Aye.
Rayford.
Aye.
22 is an ordinance amending Chapter 8.24-130 entitled Littered Covered Receptacles Required of the Municipal Code. I'll move that.
Second.
Question, what if you have a big container like a roll-off?
They have lids.
Environmental Services, this would just be for the dumpsters, like the 8-yard,
Trolley carts.
yes. Well, those can't be secured. These would just be like the gravity bars over like the commercial dumpsters, like 2-yard, 4-yard, 8-yard. It wouldn't be the roll-offs.
Wouldn't be the 8-gallon or the
It'd be like
90.
what's in our alleys downtown.
But just in the alleys downtown?
No, it'd be citywide.
Just
but
like
it's-
that.
It's
But
that size.
I'm asking that question because who's going to enforce it? Because I have a problem, as Daryl will tell you, in my neighborhood. So who's going to enforce this? Because I want to know who to call directly.
I guess it would be me.
Okay,
Add it to my list.
you'll be getting a lot of calls.
I know.
Bob, as mayor, you can call anybody you want.
In all reality, our ordinance already says, like for the trolleys, like residential users, and for the dumpsters that businesses and restaurants, churches, libraries, everybody uses. It already says the lids must be kept closed to keep the trash
wind
inside.
blows them.
The wind does not blow the lids up that often. They can, but I'm just saying, so we're adding one more layer to that to keep those things from happening or from when they're overstacked.
Correct. It doesn't have to be locked. It just has to be secured. But
Correct.
from what I've spoken to, all the companies use the same gravity bar.
Yeah. So this is a good thing. Dave, what would you like to?
Hey, David.
Dave Bernstein, 208 Court Street. I've been pestering you, Julie, as well as city manager. I didn't realize you were against this.
I'm not.
Oh, I thought you said I respectfully disagree on the lids. The plastic lids that Gil heavily uses, Waste Management use a lot, are constantly blown open.
I'm not saying that they never do. I'm just saying that that's our ordinance, that you must keep them closed.
Yes, but there's no way for a business owner to keep their lids secure the way with the cheap plastic lids that everybody uses in town. If you drive up and down the alleys in 4th Street, where we have 3 buildings now that we're developing, it's just a pigsty back there. All the dumpster lids are open all the time. We have 2 dumpsters in the alley right outside my door that it is impossible to keep the lids shut. If you drive back in that area, there's a certain amount of lids that have latches. I get the bars can be a pain, but there are no latches provided. And the ordinance doesn't make sense without providing the latch. Of note as well, if you want to see the worst area in town, drive behind that area you guys have put a lot of effort into behind Jersey Mike's all the way over to Aldi. Even though they have containment, there's no lids on the roof on the containment, and you see a lot of those flipped open, and it is just a mess.
There's a ton of trash in that field, isn't there?
It is absolutely horrible.
I just saw that.
And if we have any kind of concern whatsoever in town about beautification, it's just a standard thing. I mean, you don't go to most other cities we operate in and not see latching lids. I mean, I'm not advocating for lock lids, just lids that are latchable. And I don't think, just in the same way the DOT came along 15 years ago, 20 years ago to all of us operating roll-offs, and they said, as of such and such a date, give everybody time, you have to cover your roll-offs, and we all had to go put $10,000, $20,000 units on all of our roll-off trucks that roll back and cover them when they're driving down the interstate. And even though that was an expense to the business, the operator, that was a very logical, reasonable requirement to keep this stuff from blowing all over town. And it's just a mess. It's long overdue. So anyway, that's why I've been sticking to it for quite a while.
It finally came through.
The what?
It finally came through.
And if you want some good reading, 8.24.200, which is right near then, is the one that outlaws dried peels, orange, banana, or apple peels on the sidewalks of Sioux City. That's a good one as well.
Very much for that. I hope those young people got that for their notes for their teacher there.
Or how do we, I mean, how is secure defined in this?
Has to remain shut and have like some secure latch.
Looks like
I guess
Bob
if they have
Batchelor will be
another way to
selling
go
a lot of
about it.
blocks.
What's that?
Bob Batchelor at the Concrete Products be selling a lot of cement blocks.
Right? We actually had a guy that wanted to put bricks on his before, and I had to tell him that's probably not the best thing. But when I spoke to 4 of our haulers, they all use that same bar. So it's basically, it looks just like the lock bar. It's a gravity bar. It just doesn't have to have the lock securing it.
So who pays for it?
The hauler, and I'm sure they're probably,
Have they weighed in?
they're,
They know it's coming? I mean, is
I
anybody
mean,
around?
they'll-
Anybody here representing the haulers?
I don't believe any haulers are here. I'm sure that they'll install them.
We're not going to do second and third because of that.
That's okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Yeah, they'll install them, and I'm sure that cost gets pushed to the consumer.
Yeah, as long as we're not going to push
Aren't
second,
they
third, let's do that. I'm good.
listed as around 200 or 200?
They're $150 for the bar, and then I think it's $75 for the lock, if they choose to do a lock.
Well, it'll be well worth it to keep the litter contained.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a no, Mr. Mayor.
Bill 1.
I'm just a no, just until we get the second, third reading. I want to hear from the vendors, then I'm sure we'll be good.
Okay, citizen concerns. Any citizen to be heard, please come to the microphone and state your name, please. Seeing none, oh, come on, get up here, get your name for the record.
My name is Cole Sprague, 3916 Douglas Street. And just on the permitteds for the lids, I know that when I worked at Brongers, it's not even that far downtown, but we need the locks because of the rampant, like, the homelessness that they rip them open and throw them all over, and that's increasing the trash that you guys were talking about. So I feel like for food businesses, it should be required for them to have locks because that helps decrease trash, and then it also keeps the lids closed.
Just for Mr. Wright's class?
Yep.
We'll tell him you were here.
Okay, thank you.
I think you got to sign something. You got to sign.
Yeah, do you need us to sign your paper?
Yeah. How that works normally. They'll chase you down in the hall. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to the hard update while he gets his homework signed there.
There you go. Okay. Thanks for your
Good afternoon, Rex Mueller Police Department. First thing I'll do is introduce Sergeant Van Rokel. She was kind enough to come today. She is taking Sergeant Gill's spot. So not only is she in charge of the community policing group and public information group, but she also directly supervises the HART team.
Big shoes to fill.
Indeed.
But I know you'll do a great job.
No, and Lori will. We have confidence in her. She'll be working with Officer Roberts in that community policing group, and Captain Bertrand has transferred to uniform. So we're just going to have some changes and setting some expectations for HART. One of the things that Captain Bertrand mentioned is we would like you guys to have as much information to digest as possible. And what we haven't had on here is when officers take criminal enforcement action or take law enforcement action. So we want to add some information to the HART report out. So we're going to look at how best to convey that information to you. We don't feel like it captures everything that HART is doing. A lot of the great work, however, I think, you know, certainly the fact that we've got police involvement, I think we need to mention when we do have to default to arrest to address things. So that's going to be one of the things that we're going to be working on. We're going to give you about 4 weeks of data in this week's report out. So you guys will have not just 2 weeks, since we do your report outs every couple of weeks. You'll have 4 weeks of information. If there's anything specific that you're not seeing that we give you in the council update, please let us know. We want to make sure that we're meeting your needs so that you can decide you know, whether or not you're satisfied with the ongoing effort of the Homeless Task Force. Is there anybody, any participants, anyone that you would like to specifically see at the council meeting to address or to ask questions? We've got a ton of community partners that we've worked with, and what I usually do is I ask the task force if there's anybody that they'd like to push up in front of the mic that might be of value to you to hear from them.
You know, Chief, the only organization I can think of would be the Homelessness Coalition. They have so many participants that meet with them on a regular basis that if they felt it was helpful for them to be here and present, I'd welcome their input, but I think you're engaged with them, and if they feel comfortable with the information you're reporting out, that's fine with me.
And we just actually, as part of in the last several weeks, HART met with the coalition. So I'm sure there was a lot of discussions on how we've been doing operations. I didn't hear any report backs to see that they weren't happy with that. I think this goes hand in hand with their goals as a coalition, so I think.
I know that I've been to their meeting before. I just thought it was a very healthy environment with candid dialogue, and, you know, their organization is passionate and committed to addressing the issues, and that's why I've shared with you that I think they're a critical part of the dialogue, and that's why I'm only suggesting that if they felt it would be helpful for them to participate in any of these presentations, I'd be happy to have them participate, but I think you and your team do a great job.
And I think we are having the warming shelter present here in the next week or two as well, so as part of that process.
Yeah, and just a little comment. One of the things that I noticed is we're doing less cleanups, and that means that we're the problem areas that the HART group was addressing, that we're effectively dealing with that. But the flip side of that is I think that's driving more of these onto private property, which lengthens the period of time that we can address those, because we have to work with city inspections. Can't just go onto somebody's personal property and begin a cleanup. So one of the things that
Can I ask you right there, Chief, on that?
Yes.
I had a note on that portion of it, moving to private properties. So is there anything that we can do from an expedited, from an ordinance or anything we can do to give you a fast track access to this type of property? I mean, is there other communities, is there a tool that we can give you that gives us a little, more urgency to private property on an encampment or something?
You know, that's something that, Councilman, that I think we do need to discuss, and Marty Doherty has been very open to that. I reached out to him recently specifically about graffiti, how we can get on graffiti a little bit quicker too. So I think one of the successes of HART has been the fact that, you know, and even internally within the city, we're having conversations with other city departments that is making us more effective, and I would hope that that's something that Daryl and Marty and I can.
But like from a private property standpoint, or when you guys reach out, does it seem pretty positive though? Normally, when not times they don't even know it's on the property, or what's been the response when it's on when you reach base, when you touch base with them on the private property stuff?
There's a feeling this is going to come my direction, so I'll come on up. Private property issues typically come out of the Inspection Services Department. We work very closely with them. There are state regulations as far as notification process. We have to send out a certified mail so we get a signature on it. That does delay things an awful lot. If we can find a way to do that, we're trying to reach out, finding phone numbers for the actual property owners, things like this, so that we can actually call them. Most of the property owners, if we can speak to them, will give us permission to move on to it and get that encampment off of the property. So that has moved some things up. I know that.
Because then it doesn't become, because if, the way I look at the communities, what they do, how they get it off private property quicker is, that's exactly what they do, is they do a verbal. They say it's not on there, give them permission to remove the trespassing.
Yeah, we've actually got a document now that they can sign this. So once we make that phone call, they can sign it to give us that permission to go on, because there are certain liabilities and things like that for injuring or damaging a property and things like that that needs to be waived so that we can go on and do that.
So that's new. We are starting to do that.
We have been doing that for a little bit while. The problem of it is most of these are vacant lots, and then they end up being owned by somebody out of town. And that does slow things down. But we have gone through, and most people will have it in an LLC of some kind. We'll reach out to the business entities on the state sites, and we'll look for communications. Now, a lot of times they don't put their own names on it. They'll have a lawyer or something that will represent. And then we can start the process of going through the lawyer. But it does still, while it does drag out some, it still doesn't take as long as trying to send a certified mail out that takes 2, 3, 4 weeks sometimes, and then it comes back and it's not even signed because they didn't sign for it, and then we have to actually go out and stick it to the property. Well, we have to try that first, and then we can post it on the property. Because then the judge looks at this. If we've done our service of notice properly, the judge has no problem signing it. We get judges' signatures all the time for going on property and cleaning them up, and that's not a big issue. That's very quick. We can do that same day, and then we can move forward with the actual cleanup. I know there is one large concern that we're working with the police department on right now, and that's on Hamilton Boulevard.
Bomb guards?
Well, that too. That's where actually county property, so we're trying to work through the county for them to take responsibility of cleaning up their property there. But north of Walgreens on Hamilton Boulevard, there's a campment there that we're working together. There's a meeting tomorrow on that with the property owner themselves.
Is that the property just to the adjacent area?
Just to the north.
Of their, yeah.
How about Walgreens or?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Walgreens?
Yeah, just north of Walgreens, yeah. So we are working towards getting that one. So that's been an ongoing problem there, an issue that has neighborhood services, their homeless coalition, I know, has reached out to those people that are there. The people that are in the campment have refused services before. I'm sure they're probably going to be a repeat customer again, but we'll just keep swinging at it.
The next question then, Chief, would be, so when we spoke with the judges, and at the end, a really good meeting with the judges, and they talked about some of the requests they had, which was when I met with Shayla at the homeless center. I got to start using these terms right. When you have a tier 1 person that is someone that is refusing help. That's just basically our repeat offenders. When we issue them a citation and it goes in front of a judge and we're doing better paperwork, we're kind of being more teeth, trying to get more impact on them. Do you guys get any feedback then on how that closes the loop? So let's say you arrest someone and it goes in front of a judge. Do you guys get any closure on that individual? I mean, I know we have these people kind of not categorized but documented as repeat offenders. Are you getting feedback on how far they got prosecuted?
I'm not sure that we're always going to get feedback. At times, if there's a disposition, sometimes the prosecutors will send a form back to the officers. But
they do?
Well, in some cases, I don't always see them. But I can tell you that our crime analysis unit is working on creating an entire new list of the most frequent flyers, so to speak, so that, and it's for the purpose exact purpose that you said, not only for the judges, but for the jail, for the non-sworn staff at the jail, for the officers, so that everybody's in the loop as to who we're experiencing the most problems with, to ensure that we're doing exactly what you just mentioned, is that when they come through the judges, it's like a prosecutor alert. They understand that this is somebody that we have done all we could for, but that the consequences need to happen here. And so that's an ongoing discussion. Obviously, we have to work with the county attorney's office, but as you said, the judges are certainly willing, but we have to do our part to document and determine who those people are. And right now, in fact, I spoke to the head lead crime analyst today. She's working on that new list because, quite frankly, the old list of folks that weren't accepting services, the HART team did such a good job with doing diversion and getting services to some of those folks that we're not seeing them. So something's working there, right. But for those who are refusing, those that aren't accepting help and they're continuing to cause us problems, we're going to make sure that we're tagging them and that we're addressing them appropriately.
But Chief, that's, I mean, I just want to make sure that's based on what, criminal trespass or?
No, it's based on a number of things, who we're dealing with most often. Trespass in itself, we've said it here, trespass in itself without an accompanying, charge of, that somebody is committing a public offense while trespassing is a minor offense.
Right.
So that's not what we're using to determine that. In fact, not all the folks on this list that we're making are necessarily related to homelessness, but it is one of those things that we are trying to come up with. Who are we dealing with most often? Who's causing us the most issues? Because while we said this task force is about finding non-traditional solutions, we still need to use law enforcement techniques every now and then, and we still need to make arrests in some cases. So it's about figuring out who those people are, who are creating the most issues for us, so that we have an appropriate criminal justice.
So two other flags just in the last couple of weeks, and I know you're getting tired of my pictures that I send to you, because all I do is when people text me pictures of people drinking beer and stuff on the streets, I just send them right to you. It's like, hey,
okay.
I know you respond wonderfully, which is great. It's got to be getting tiresome. It's kind of the same areas and stuff. Is there any, do we try to do any type of, I don't know, mission, I don't call it mission, but any type of specific areas that we just say, okay, at some point, we've just got to shut this area down. The one being across from Parrott's place. I'm texting you 3 times a week now. Those guys are drinking beer on the sidewalk, and they ain't getting. We flush the cops, and they show up, and it's hard on you guys, the resources. But at what point do we? Who? Number one, are they walking out of the rail with it, or where? Why is that? Is that just because it's warm there with the sun? Why is that? Seems to be an area that we just can't get a handle on.
You would think that all the contact that they have from our officers would convince them that maybe they go somewhere else, but I can only settle on the fact that they don't care. No matter how many times we deal with them.
They're not feeling any pain.
When you think about it, if you're situationally homeless, if you're homeless, a trip to jail isn't that bad a deal. It's air conditioning, it's maybe you get fed. So at times, our response doesn't make it all that much more unappealing. We're going to continue to respond, and we're going to continue because ultimately our goal is always going to be to modify behavior. If people are engaging in bad behavior, you would hope that if you see us enough, you might change your behavior.
Yeah,
But I
again,
can say that.
I'll apologize in advance again for the text messages, but I do appreciate
No,
the
it's,
response.
that's our
But to that
job.
question,
Yes.
is there?
I get those ones.
Keep sending them.
I mean, is there a criminal offense at that point to that question?
Well, if they are consuming, and a lot of the times when we've sent officers, they don't have evidence of consumption. And you could do public intox if they're intoxicated, but again, we're talking about Fourth Amendment issues. When somebody's in the common right away, for us to take and displace somebody just because somebody doesn't like looking at them,
Right.
we're asking for trouble.
Absolutely.
So, we have to balance. Now, I can tell you that the officers try their best to get voluntary compliance when they don't have an arrestable offense, and quite often, folks do move on. And it does use resources, but it doesn't mean that we can't address them. So when people call, we're going to come.
So last on because the weather's getting nicer again in the grand entrance to our city. Once again, I know that panhandling is not illegal. It's protected, but it is illegal in the meeting, right?
Select meetings.
Wide or less.
What's that?
If they're 6 feet wide or less.
So are they, how, we dropped the tape measure on that one up there on top of Wesley Way because they're back. And I run that 3-4 times a week easily, and in the last 3 weeks, there they are, taking turns. So
Well-
a lot of times it's late, and I'm not sure what time the task force ends or whatever, or our badges on the streets leave. What's the process? How do you want us to handle that?
Just a call is great.
Are you cool with
The
that? I
officers-
mean, okay.
There was a day shift sergeant who was very passionate about that. He had his folks hit it pretty hard for a while, and that did modify.
It did.
It did.
It really helped.
It did.
But again, it's always a challenge. You hope that you will modify behavior, and they'll start doing it again. But as we've said, we're always moving the problem. Ultimately, we push it off the bridge.
Yeah.
It's going to go somewhere else.
Well, it is pushing out. The other hot spot is right down by Winslow's new place, right down there by that new brew pub to the.
On Fifth Street?
Yeah, Fifth, in his new place, right about a block.
The
Yeah,
old
there's-
novelty machine.
Yeah, they like the sun, they're drinking beer all the time against that wall. It seems like you drive by there, and that's becoming kind of the new spot, right to the west of his new place. And you hate to see his new place get polluted, so just thought I'd point out some hot spots. But other
No,
than that,
we'll
you know,
keep hitting it.
hey,
And-
we're winning in some places, no doubt about it. And I mean, especially the encampments, I think they're feeling it, and I think what Jill's doing, I appreciate the efforts, and, you know, the ambassadors are coming, the badges are there, so.
Well, and as I said, if you look at the cleanups, the amount of cleanups are going down because the frequent spots that we were having them, we're addressing them quickly, and it's like graffiti. If you clean things up quickly, if you work
Yeah.
proactively, there's less of a chance of those issues continuing.
I had
They're having
I had amazing conversation with Shayla, and she's going to come in, Shayla, is it Moore?
More. Yep.
But really a quality individual there, what she's doing, her mission. And we had a real candid conversation. And I guess, first I thought it was rich that she thinks that those places next door, 901 Nebraska, need to come down because her neighbors are a detriment to her business. I thought that was kind of ironic, that language. But her perspective, I love it when it gets thrown back at us that homeless is never going to go away, right? It keeps coming back. Well, everybody has it. You're never going to cure homelessness. So at some point, do we go, okay, we're not going to cure homelessness, but we do have the right to contain it, corral it. And I think that we need to maybe change mindsets and say, okay, at what point now, it's the elephant in the room. We've talked about the warming center and other places. If we can't cure it, in some instances, we still need to have the ability to corral it. And if that means that we need to identify that their services are closer to the food source or whatever we need to do. But I think when she's going to come in and present the homeless, the warming shelter, I think that's going to be part of the conversation. Is right now it seems like we're just kind of scattered like marbles all over the downtown. And at some point, we need to start corralling this, closer to the food sources and their needs. So I just thought that would be a question that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks.
It's a great discussion. I just wanted to add, in the situation on Hamilton, we have a meeting this week. I think we've got neighborhood services, police, zoning, and inspections involved in trying to come up with some solution there. So, and meeting with the property owner. So, I believe we can find some creative ways to deal with that.
I think sometimes we also need some education because obviously with panhandling, if people are continuing to give, and pass, then, you know, if a person says, hey, this is where I'm going to make the most money or get the most, then it's, you know, it won't change, no matter how many, you know, officers we send by or whatever. And so I think that, you know, it's a great, as you say, Marty, a great discussion. And of course, I'm going to always make sure that we don't criminalize homelessness and such. But yeah, we want to make sure it's cleaned up too as well. So,
couple other things on the list. I guess the frequent flyer list that we have. We have a meeting that will be up on the 17th to take that from a paper list to a digital one. We're on the same record management system with the jail. That meeting will be how do we get that list that I believe is now done. The crime analyst has that done, that we can get that directly to the jail just so that no one can drop the ball. Like if I forget to let the jail staff know, hey, this person's one of our frequent flyers, that to trigger that alert for the judge, that'll happen automatically. So that'll be something that'll speedline that. Just to add what the chief said, in looking at the last couple weeks to take over the homeless group and looking at it, time and pressure is really the success. It's the collaboration, of course, between agencies, but you got to put time and pressure. Where we've done that, we have success, and I think that'll be the model going forward. So if there's something we want to tend to, we need to get on it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Building permits.
Okay, Darrell Bullock, Buildings or Inspection Services Supervisor. We did have the spreadsheet sent out again. As you can see, there's a lot more residential activity than there is commercial. Commercial right now is slow. We're hearing back from a lot of the trades. Most of the trades have a good percentage of their staff laid off. They're reaching out farther and farther out in the communities. And I think part of your discussion earlier about getting bids on some of these projects is great timing. You know, I'm looking at some of the projects that we might have coming up for demolition that are bigger projects. And honestly, now is the time to save some money, quite frankly, because there are people out there that are really looking for some work. So sad, obviously, but it's the reality of it. So we do have some projects that have gotten slowed up a little bit. They're kind of backing down. They're not looking for a real quick turnaround time to move forward, so they're just asking a lot of questions before they're even actually putting in applications. So we are working through a lot of those with them at their pace that they're looking for. Again, they're just not ready to start. They've got some projects going. But we do have several of them that we are still looking at, and there's some smaller projects for little interior remodels and things like that that are going on just to keep staff busy. So residential, like I said, residential's good. We've still got quite a number of them coming in, and very optimistic that that's going to continue because we're still hearing a lot of buzz out there about some new areas being built in and things like that. So,
well, Darrell, I want to compliment you.
Thank you.
You've taken ownership of the department. I mean, you really have. I mean, when it comes to pushing permits through, I mean, you're hovering, which is good. And the service, I mean, the feedback, the text messages that I know that we're all getting is very positive, the turnarounds. I mean, kind of historic type stuff, especially on the residential side, like you said. And some of the snafus that we've had even on the commercial sides, I appreciate you and Mike. I think we were doing less and less of having to have the big meetings on job site where we can work it out on site versus, come on, guys, let's keep it going.
Yeah, the meeting that we had the other day down on 4th Street, it was, you know, you came back and sat down with Marty and Chris and some economic development people as well. And the program is going to be able to work for him either direction, whether he goes to a new or expansion. I think we'll go to the expansion because we have less restrictive requirements that way. So I think the project's going to move forward very quickly that way. I've been in contact with his designer, Doug Rose.
And cost feasible.
That's
the key.
Exactly.
He can actually afford to do it.
And I mean, the goal for that whole program was basically to fill vacant buildings, and that's what this does. It perpetuates that. So I think it's a great way to be able to move that forward.
Quick update on the software program. We continue to move forward slowly. We have done some internal housekeeping and some work that was a prerequisite to putting the software apps in. Involves some training in some different departments, customer service and so on, and some updating of the document management system. So
when you going live?
Talk to IT. I don't necessarily understand everything, but
when are you going live?
Huh?
When are you guys going to go live?
I don't know yet. We're waiting for a timeline from Central Square. I talked to IT this morning.
What's your guess? Soon. Okay.
Another 60 days, maybe. Seriously, they're very slow, and we've got to get,
Okay.
we're getting all these other, we're doing things that we can control. We've got those things in place, and there was a lot to that, a lot more than I realized, but we're still waiting for the go-ahead from Central Square.
I think what I will add to that, because one of the big benefits of that was going to be the online submittals of building permits, and we found an avenue to be able to do that without this program. It's not as good, it's not as 100%, but at least it does move that forward a lot quicker, and we're able to respond back and forth a lot freer that way too. So,
Can they pay online yet?
I'm sorry.
Can they pay online for this?
That is the one thing that we're
That's
not able
coming?
to do yet,
Okay.
but
Good.
at least we are able to accept those and review those as electronics instead. So
Good.
that's a big
So you
win
can
for
get the
us.
back of how it works. They come in, drop off their payment, and
Yeah, it's a big win for us in that.
Daryl, are we proceeding with 901? What's the status there, Marty? What are we going to do?
That's my direction, is to keep moving forward.
Okay.
We did receive an email that had some attachments on it. The one attachment had to deal with the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing for engineer. Well, the phone number on it related to a company out in New York. There was no address on the letterhead whatsoever from the company, and it's very hard to design mechanical, electrical, or plumbing if you don't have an actual blueprint or design to work from, nor are you able to see the property. So there was also a sketch that was attached. Obviously, it was just computer generated, just click, 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 because it actually had more openings than what there actually is there on the print. So nothing's changed. You know, council was generous in opening it up for a 90-day stay of demolition. Nothing really has happened there. We've had like numerous phone calls about graffiti and standing open for them to get up there and board it up. One of the deed holders, Kyle, actually reached out on an email and said that, you know, if we're moving forward with demolition, he'd like to have the opportunity to do it himself, which is perfectly fine. As many of you council members know, we do have $100,000 of their money for the demolition purpose, but if they move forward with that demolition themselves, then they'll receive that $100,000 back.
So you're moving forward. What's the date?
Today.
I'm going to reach out, and this on the 14th, I believe it is my actual cutoff when I can legally do that. So right after that, I'll be reaching out to Kyle and let him know that he can get started, or he can get started before that if he'd like to. But it's going to be that I'm going to get started with this asbestos survey. I don't know how much we're going to find in there. There was a lot of demolition that went way farther than it should have, so I don't know how much got done. I'm hoping that the dust on the floor doesn't test positive for asbestos, because that's a big cleanup if it is.
Daryl, is it a $100,000 bond, or is it an actual $100,000?
It's check, $100,000 cashier's
The
check.
bond.
Yes.
Well, again, I'm not here to, I mean, I think it's great that you're staying aggressive and keep your foot on the gas with a lot of these demos, man. I mean, the day for grace is over. The community wants clean up, and you're doing it, and it's fantastic. People are seeing it.
One of the things you'll find in the placard hearing, or the placard presentation that's coming up next, is that I ask for demolition on everything when I come to council.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more manageable that way, because if they're serious about it, then they can provide the documents to me that show that they are serious and that they have the financial means to do those, to actually make those repairs. Because that's when we have failures, when they don't fully understand.
And I think Mike's gonna, we're doing a presentation on red tag, aren't we?
That's right. Right now.
Right now?
Right now.
Let's hear
I
it.
can just loop over into it.
Let's hear it.
Marty's going to be my Vanna over here and run the slideshow for me. So, anyway, to start off with the property, how do we get our red tags? Typically, red tags.
You guys bring that up, or?
Coming up. There it goes. Thank you.
And by the way, these photos are all local photos. They're all properties or inspections that we've been called out on. Unfortunately, a lot of them are in the middle of the night, but they are properties here in town. There's not a lot. We're just going to go through a few of them. But where we get our property, our leads, if you will, for it is the comm center. Typically is probably 80% of our red tags initiate out of the comm center. They'll call us during the day, they'll call us in the middle of the night, and we're going to respond to fire and police requests at those times. They're going to be out there for some kind of an issue, and that gets us into private property as well that way, and we're able to go in and make an assessment of the property and move forward from there. So police and fire are by far the most. Routine rental inspections, we'll go into some of these places and they're just absolutely trashed. Unfortunately, landlords might not be as diligent in going in and checking these properties, and they just get to be a hoarding situation or just complete unsanitary situations. Some of them are based on complaints, neighbors complaining and letting us know that there's property that's got a lot of issues next to them. They're tired of dealing with the blight in their neighborhood, and they'll call it in, and we'll go out and make inspections and move forward based on what we can find there. The other one is water department. You know, people say, well, you're going to red tag a house just because they don't have water? Yeah, I am. And I'm going to do that because of sanitary issues. And you'll notice on a couple of these screens what happens, and I've promised that I would keep the nasty photos out. I kept them fairly PG. So, but you understand, you can't flush the toilet, you can't take a shower, you can't clean food prep, you can't do any of that when you don't have water service. So now it becomes an unsanitary situation. And part of the requirement is that the plumbing fixtures are operable. That's part of the occupancy requirements. So that's how we get to tag some of those properties. And we do get them brought up to code at that point. One of the other understandings is the fact that you hear it placarded, you hear it red tagged, you hear it's condemned. All three of those mean the exact same thing. And what those mean is that it's not fit for human occupancy. Now, it's on structures. Now, we can also placard fences and retaining walls and sheds, but none of that allows for human occupancy. So it's an unsafe situation.
So if you red tag or placard or condemn a fence or an outbuilding,
yeah,
does that trigger the updating of the primary residence as well?
Not necessarily. We can placard a specific issue on a property. So apartment buildings are a good example of that. We might get called out because there was a small fire in an apartment building itself. And that apartment was the only one, or maybe one or two apartments were affected, but the structural integrity is fine and the rest of the utilities work for the rest of the apartments, and we'll just tag just that apartment or one or two apartments. Same thing here. If we got a shed or a garage falling down in the back, you know, we've all seen garages that are leaning like this on, you know, some of these properties. You know, back then they didn't know what a portal frame was, you know, and that has to do with how narrow that wall is inside the garage door. That's what keeps it upright, so it's not going to lean. And we can address just those garages. They can make the repairs on them, but if they're not too far gone, but we can just do a garage, we can just do a fence, we can just do a retaining wall. And we have done retaining walls before and placarded that, so they had to abate that structure.
But on a primary residence, if you do red tag for a particular issue, that triggers a red tag for other issues as well.
Yeah, the entire structure, there's a key word that basically that moves anything forward is occupancy, okay? And occupancy is either lost when it's a lack of use. You don't use it for that type of occupancy anymore. You've changed that. Or if you lose it because of a red tag situation where you've placarded the structure, now you have to bring it up to current code. Now, does that mean I'm going to make you go through and strip everything out of that house and start? No, I'm not. We're going to look at it and we're going to make accommodations as long as it's safe and health and safety are by far the most concerned. So we want to make sure that that safety is issue. And it's not just for the one that's in there now, but it's the one in there for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now. They have to be safe as well. So, yeah. Reasons for placarding, no heat. That little icicle came from the second floor and went all the way down into the basement because there was no heat in the structure, and obviously the water lines froze wide open. That was up on Ingleside. This is another one over on, this is on Court Street. No gutters for many years, no downspouts for many years. Foundation washed out from underneath it. Obviously, we have a structural issue here, so structural failures is another part of it. We've all seen some areas around here, we've had some roof collapses over the years because of lack of maintenance or dedication. Structural failure is another one of ours that we end up getting into quite frequently. Hoarding, unfortunately, it happens. It happens in every community, and this is one of the good pictures. It is a unhealthy situation. It's not safe. We've had one up on corner of Stone Park Boulevard and Blackstone, I believe it was, where an actual elderly person got trapped because they had what we like to refer to them as a path house, where the tiles are stacked up so high you just have a path going through. And the materials fell over on top of her, and she laid there for about a day before somebody found her. She was still alive, and she was living still when we took the red tag off, but there was a lot of work there to get that property cleaned out so that it was safe for her again. Ventilation is always a big problem when you have that because you're plugging up air return vents and supply vents for the air. Unsanitary, we talked about earlier. Unsanitary, no water situations. You can't keep it clean if you don't have water. So, fire is another one. This one could have been done for both. Actually, there could have been 3 on this one. That's one of the reasons why I put this picture in it. This particular house, this one is on the list right now for demolition, will be demolished here in my next contract. This had a foundation structural issue where the back corner of the house is probably dropped at least 8 inches, if not more, so the house is leaning towards the neighbor's house. Hoardings through the entire house. You can see one of the piles, that was one of the smaller piles in her room, and it was burnt pretty bad on the inside as well, so it was pretty well gutted out. But fire is obviously one of the big ones that we get called out on. So what do? We look at them and investigate. We determine the severity of the health and safety issues, evaluate the conditions, determine if it needs to be placarded. So we may go through and look at it and say, okay, we can do this, we can leave this on and keep this moving forward for you if we meet these conditions. We'll give them an official notice and say, these things have to be taking place in 90 days, or we could move forward with a placard on your structure. It gets them motivated, they get it done, and they get it cleaned up really quick. If we feel that it's just not safe for them to live in there, to be in that particular property, that's when we'll go ahead and put the placard on, and we'll move forward with that. Notification process. Immediately at the time of the notification, a placard's put on the door, also an official notice telling them if and when they can be in the property. They're given timelines which we'll get into a little bit farther here, but the owner is given a certified mail, and in that certified mail is a listing of the timelines that they have to deal with, the correctional requirements for that to be able to remove that tag, the appeal methods that they might have, and then, of course, all notifications are recorded against the property as well.
Does anything change if ownership changes with the property, timelines?
Yeah, see, that's one of the reasons why we record it. So the only problem is if you have somebody that's got a big surprise and says, hey, I didn't realize it. Well, the red sticker on the front of the door is a pretty good indication for you. We try to keep them on. Sometimes they get peeled off. We go back out, we'll put another one on. It gets peeled off, we go out and put another one on, or it gets covered up because it's boarded over or something like this. But we always try to keep that sticker on there. But the main thing is the fact that we record these immediately. So if they do a title search when they're purchasing that property instead of a quick claim deed, they're going to know immediately. They're going to see the official notification. If that official notification was not signed, not claimed by the owner of the property, and the certified mail came back to us, we move forward with actually placing it on the property itself. We placard it on the property, and then we photograph of that so that we have documentation that they were notified of what was wrong, they can't be in it, and the fact that their appeal process that they have at that time.
But not everybody, sometimes quick claim deeds create surprises.
Yeah, they do, and we try to make sure people understand what the risk that they're taking when they get a quick claim deed. We have one right now that is coming up here in the next placard hearing on. Sorry, I ruined everybody's 16th, evening the 16th for you, but we're keeping it as short as we can. We got one coming up on there, and when property owners get that hearing notice that it's coming up for council decision on what to do with those properties, that notice is also recorded against the deed. But also, they're like, oh my gosh, they're going to come do it, so let me just dump this property. And one of these properties it's horrible, and they're trying their best to get it sold. And people they're trying to do quick claim deeds, and so far the majority of them have all come in, and we've shown the pictures of the place and said, you know, you obviously have the right to move forward any way you want to, but here's the reality of it. And we would show it to them. They're like, well, we weren't told any of that.
Would the recording of the notification of the placard be reflected in their title opinion, or would that be one of the exceptions at the end of the opinion that says something to the effect of we are not opining on, because oftentimes that'll be assessments or other carve-outs to the opinion, right?
That's a legal question. I'm not sure exactly how that appears when they do title search.
Sure, and it's been a long time since I've seen a title opinion that's flagged this or has come to my attention, but I believe it's noted in the main body of the title opinion and not as an exception.
And I would just add, historically, the department 20 years ago was run a completely different way, where they would just, when they took the placard off, they would just hand the placard owner or the property owner the release and say, here you go. Go ahead and record it. I would say less than 50% of those ever got recorded. Yeah. So we haven't had a lot lately, but for many, many years we were getting, when these properties were being sold, we were getting calls because the title still was flagged that the property was still placarded, when in fact the placard had been released quite some time ago, and it just wasn't getting done. So now our office, once they come in, they pay their placard release fees, which are basically $220, covers recording costs and things like that. Then we immediately record that for them so that they don't have to. So that way they know that the placard's been removed. Yeah. Timelines, property owner has 6 months to make repairs. There are a few other timelines in there that we try to give opportunity for them to get things going. There are some shorter notices if necessary. We can move that up. But in general speaking, we're going to say we're giving 6 months to make those repairs. Failure to make the repairs will result in council action. So these quarterly placard hearings that you'll have, that's when those are taken care of. I am going to bring, if it's at a point where it hasn't been taken care of and I've felt the need to bring it to council, I'm going to be very consistent. I'm going to ask for demolition on every one of them, and I would appreciate your support in doing that because it's a much better way of managing the property through to the end that way. The council may grant a one-time stay of demolition. The property we discussed earlier has had 2. So that's in direct violation of the municipal code as it was, let alone anything else that's been going on with it. So just keep that in mind. We try to make sure that and this is another reason why we're back when that first one was granted was a long time ago, and council did not always move them forward the same way. They made provisions this way or provisions that way, whether it was in line with what the code requirements were or not. Unfortunately, those decisions were made. We've moved past that. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so very firm about the demolition requests that I send in, because I work with these people beforehand. I bet you I've taken at least 5 properties off since I sent placard notices out. So they don't have to come to for your decision. We were able to deal with them up front and get them taken care of before they ever came to you. So when you get that list is pretty set.
Yeah, and one thing I would just add, I've been very impressed by when they have a situation of a red tag type house, they open a case file and they keep a record of every contact that we've had with the property owner. Every time they set foot in the house, every time they take any action, it's pretty complete. And they put photographs in there too. And I've been impressed by how you might hear different things from owners or different stories you might hear or whatever, but there's a record. You can be confident that there is a record in the computer file for that property that goes back and covers it might miss something, but pretty much it looks like I've seen every interaction that we have with the property owner, the notices, the replies, any inspections, re-inspections, it's all in there. And if you ever had a particular address that you wanted to know more about, they could give you a record of that and show you everything that's happened since it started.
And so with that timeline, and so there's no ever reset if a new owner purchases?
There's no provisions that directly state that. We have brought them back before because it's just, for whatever reason, it's a very solid structure. And we want to make sure that we're moving forward. When I bring a property forward for that council action to give them a stay of demolition, it might be to rescind the demolition order and grant them a stay of demolition. I've had a lot of conversations with them, and the requirements are pretty clear. It's you give me estimates of repairs for everything, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, construction. Total that number up, and if that's $50,000, then you give me a letter from a financial institution. I don't care how much money you have or how much money you have access to. I just need to know that you've got $50,000, if that's the number, available for that project. And then I'm going to ask for the bond. I'm going to be very consistent about it. $10,000, you're going to hear $10,000. Well, it doesn't say $10,000 in the code. It says the estimated cost of demolition. If you look at the highs and the lows on single-family dwellings, it's typically $10,000. So why did I ask for $100,000 on the 901 Nebraska Street? Because it's probably going to take $100,000 or more to do that project. I had asked for $70,000 on the one up at 27th and Court. And we were able to release the monies back because I got that one down for, I want to say, $57,000, $58,000. So that extra that they had on there that they failed, I was able to return back to them. So
the reality is, I think you give them, the property owners, every opportunity to save the property.
Yeah.
And it boils down to the quality of the property and the quality of the person.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great example. I appreciate you saying that because there's a property coming back on this placard hearing on the 16th that was on last placard hearing, and council moved forward to remove it from that hearing and give them that time. And it was removed, so they didn't have to do the bond or anything because it was deleted from the action, and they've done nothing. So it's back on there again.
So is the 6 months, is that a city ordinance or is that state?
That's in the city ordinance.
That is city? 6 months is city?
Yeah, it's in the municipal code under Title 2006-030.
So do you find out that normally, and I'm going to beat this to death, but this
That's okay.
It's a great conversation for the community to hear, because this is one of the things people, the world's changing, 6 months, squatters, everything else.
Yeah.
So my question is, do most people do when you give them 6 months, do they do the repairs the last 2 months?
Good question.
That's a great question.
I would say,
That's always.
I would say maybe 50/50.
Yeah, because that to me, that's what normally what happens if you give somebody 6 months, they normally do it the last 2 months, or if you give them 3 months, they're going to get it done after 1 month.
And unfortunately,
so again, I go back to this: the quality of the neighborhood.
Right.
If this is not state mandated or anything else, I think it's something that as a council maybe.
Well, there are some provisions in there in that chapter that in the timelines that that can be accelerated if they don't do it. And one of the reasons was conversations that I had with prior councils, going back several sessions ago of councils, or cycles of councils before, was that I was not being as cooperative or, working with them as much as I could, and I was tearing too many of them down. And that's okay, that's their opinion, and that's fine. But when you look at, it's not just that person, it's the whole neighborhood. And it's the people that are going to be living in that house from years to come down the road. It needs to be safe because we said it was. My name goes on it. When it goes back out, my name's on that. Whether it's a building permit or a removal of red tag, my name ultimately is on that for the life of that structure.
Well, I think too, that what you see too now, Daryl, and I think Julie, you know this with infill lots, is that we are in an environment of, there's a whole group of developers or infill guys that are out there now. So, the old days of, we got to save the structure because integrity of the neighborhood. What I found in the neighborhoods that I'm in is you take down the two bad apples and everybody else starts investing in their place, and another developer moves in and throws in a 1,000 square foot house.
I agree.
So I think we're in a different environment where it was like, oh my God, we got to preserve, give them every chance, opportunity. And I don't think that's where we're at anymore, because a lot of these are they're bulk landlords, or they're just
absent owners.
Yeah, absentee out of town. So that's why I think we as a council, that's the beauty of this conversation, is to kind of evaluate. I think this council has your back and completely supports what you're doing on an accelerated timeline, because I think there is people that want to backfill these. You got a lemon up there on Royce or something, and you knock it down, you're going to have another one quick.
Exactly.
And that's what's
cool.
cool.
It'll go on the vacant to vital list.
Yeah, several
Stay aggressive.
Several of those things have happened where there's been some changes on zoning, if you will, through the years, or amendments or text amendments to them, where we're able to get some of those back into those areas where we couldn't before, and they can be built on now. And that helps keep that filled in, because it is important to refill those lots back into that, because it does make a neighborhood, does make the community. We've got a structure that's going to be on the placard here on Thursday night, next Thursday night, and that is a very, very solid structure, but it needs to be in the hands of a
developer
very
who
willing
has some money.
participant that knows exactly what it's going to take, because that neighborhood needs a solid structure like that in place for the betterment of the neighborhood. And I think there's some people out there that are willing to do it. I'm not afraid of the building falling down. I'm not afraid of the building falling with pieces off of it. It's structurally sound. Unfortunately, it's had last 4 to 5 years unbelievable lack of maintenance, and to the point where it finally got placarded because there was not enough heat in the building. There was no heat. So there was a lot of subcontractors that didn't get paid for their duties, their work that was done on it. There was no elevators that were workable, which were required. A lot of different things went strikes against us before we.
So what I think the community needs to hear out of this presentation is that, number one, is there's a refocus on cleaning up our neighborhoods where we all live in. There's always 1 or 2 bad apples on there. And then we do have a bad player, not a bad landlord or a bad tenant or a bad out-of-towners, that we're going to aggressively pursue that with the red tag. And we're going to aggressively pursue to get it fixed up, or it's coming down, and we're going to put, reliefs on the way. So I think that's the message I think we want to put out to the community, is that there's a sense of urgency when it comes to these houses.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things I do want to say, as far as with the whole going for demolition thing, it does speed up anybody that really wants to get it. Okay, you've got to set for energy. Now it's on Daryl's demolition list, and he could move it any time. And it does take a little bit of time, because you got to do the asbestos and you got to do all that kind of stuff. But at least it's got a clock clicking away on it. And we'd like to wrap up with the fact that we've got we've got it down to a science. I mean, Craig, you can attest to how bad some of those hearings used to be. There was one hearing that had 200 properties on it. Had to go several nights just to get it done. because they hadn't been consistently coming to council. And I think one of the things, one, is we're very aggressive and get them done as quickly as we can. We can always push to get it better, and I think that that's one of the things that we, with your support, we can do. But as we look at that, we've gotten our CIP fund, and we've talked a little bit about that in budget hearings, and I was, might have been told I should have asked for more, but I didn't. Because $400,000 is a lot of money, and it's a lot of taxpayers' money, because it does come out of the general fund. Actually, it does have some casino money in it, I believe, too. But we're very diligent about trying to get our money back. So we invoice immediately once everything is done to that property holder, the deed holder. And then if they don't do it, then we go ahead and assess it against the property. And we will get it when a property is sold. A lot of times we'll get a check back from the county. It might be a while, but one year I think we got $70,000 back, and I didn't even spend $100,000 that year. So some years I won't spend that $400,000, but then you have a couple of big buildings and it's gone, and you got to start building it up again. So I think that
I just want to add, I know we wanted to end there, but I just want to add, I think Darrell does a great job. Couple of things. One, he's very thorough, he takes it seriously, and he constantly points out the public safety aspect of this, that people's lives are at risk. If you're going to have a fire, you're going to have an issue like that. But at the same time, I think he and his staff treat people fairly, and they give them an opportunity. If they want to fix that up, we're going to help them do that, and we're going to give them time to do that. But so oftentimes it doesn't happen, and that's when it gets to the point where you've got to take action.
I will say one thing about the safety part of it. Sometimes it's pretty simple to look at and do. Other times it's hidden a little bit, One of the properties I talked about with it being a solid structure, but it's an apartment building. And they didn't have any heat. So the owner that lives clear over on a coast, their decision was to go ahead and buy a bunch of PTAC units and put PTAC units in each apartment. The square footage coverage for the common PTAC units that he had purchased, you need 2 for each apartment at minimum. Well, they all draw 30 amps. Well, the breaker panel for each apartment is 30 amps. I'm not sure how you're going to do that. So now you're looking at rewiring the whole building. So they're making decisions that aren't safe. We go into these places and we find them all the time where they've overamped it. Hey, we kept blowing the breaker. I got another one we were checking out this afternoon, or I hadn't heard back from the inspectors yet what we found. But the people that are living in this apartment, they kept blowing the breakers in their apartment. Well, she even wrote in, she goes, well, they keep blowing the breakers. So my husband and I went out and got a new breaker for the main. Well, that's a problem.
That's not quite the resolution.
Because I'm going to guess there was probably a 60 amp main, if that, and they probably put a 100 amp breaker in.
Well, thanks, guys. Really, seriously, appreciate it. Good job.
Can I add one last
Stay
thing
aggressive.
before you close it out, Darrell?
Yes.
One thing that I would like everyone to know is because we have the placard hearing, because you put it on the demolition list, does not mean the city acquires the property.
Oh, absolutely, you're right, yeah.
So many people believe that it becomes ours to do with what we want, and it's not.
We will facilitate this transfer of property as much as we can. If they have people that are interested in it, we will do everything we can to put them in contact with the actual deed holder to get that moving forward, because there are a lot of people that have got a lot of interest in it. There's one particular that's doing a lot of them right now, so.
One thing I do want to say, Darrell, is, having talked to you and even with your presentation, I may not always want to move as fast as my partner, Rick, over there, but I do appreciate your sentiment and being accountable to people's lives and that safety aspect of that speaks volumes. And so I may push back sometimes, but I will always.
What conversations are for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. That was helpful. Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Joe,
All
how
right.
many properties are on the placard hearing next week?
You're going to ask me that. I think we're down to 12 or 13, something like that.
Wow.
Oh,
Good.
We had started with 22 or 23.
Good.
Compared to the 200 we had back in Marty's and Meyer?
Say thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Not everybody shows up. All right, with that said, we'll move to council concerns. Mr. Bertrand?
Real quickly, Pat, you're still in here, right? Yep. Hey, just want to say 18th Street's looking good. I was talking to Brad earlier. If anybody drives by 18th, the field services, they've done a great job. They got that mobile building down. They got a replan, and again, we can't ask the public to clean up their properties if we can't clean up ours. So as long as we're doing, great job, and I'm looking forward to the finished product. So good job at Field Services. It's great. Already talked about the 901. Looking down here, we got the homeless shelter coming in.
Yes.
Scheduled, which is good. And then, Dolly, I'm going to keep pounding this fact is that, again, we did our share with the property taxes. At this, again, kind of got lost in the article, but again, residential property taxes went down 113 bucks, 100 or 1,000, and 399. We didn't go up on the commercial side, like I said in the journal. We actually went down 399 on our end. The county needs to continue to do their part. That's a conservative board over there. They got to figure out how to lower their levy. The status quo doesn't work for the property taxpayers in the state, in this county. So they need to step up, and more people need to be asking why they can't get their budget under control. It's nonsense. And the Sioux City, that mess they got going over at the Sioux City School Board, again, they're sitting on a big surplus that no one is talking about, and it is unrestricted, and they can buy down their levy. So again, I just want to make sure that we reiterate that this council has done their job. I don't know why we're not seeing it, because I think it's anyway, but that's not our job. And let's let them keep pushing on it. So again, I want to reiterate that. When we start talking about, real quick, talked about Baumgars, we talked about, I don't think Salazar's in here. We got any gas yet down at the dock? Anybody know? Do we have any gas down at the boat dock yet? That's the big thing here. So anyway, other than that,
I can find out.
please do that. New gravel contracts coming
Next week.
next week, which is fantastic for the hauling. Other than that, it was a great week. Thanks.
Craig?
My turn, very quickly. Mike, I do want to congratulate you. I'm excited. I know you're going to do a great job. As I had mentioned earlier, this is not a status quo appointment. We have expressed to you the importance of change and oversight and evaluation and reevaluation, and I am anxious and excited to work with you in your new position, and I know the rest of the council is as well. Very quickly, the Gospel Mission had reached out a couple times, and I think it was primarily PD. They wanted to thank you for a couple of quick responses with regard to some graffiti and some other things. Randy and Dave Delzell were very pleased and appreciative. Chamber meeting 2 weeks ago, they're preparing for the DC trip. I know the mayor and I are going, and it looks to be a good agenda, and I'm anxious and excited to be able to go out to that meeting and work for the city. Downtown Partners is working towards their spring and summer schedule. They have hired a new business liaison person who I believe starts next week. He's extremely impressive, and I think we're going to enjoy working with him in terms of our relationship and what expectations of him. Had a couple people that have reached out to me asking about what the city is doing for the 250th celebration. Some of the questions have tied more to Saturday in the Park, knowing that Dave Bernstein will have quite an event, and whether we're going to be doing anything in conjunction with or partnership to. So just to reach out to wonder what we're doing with regard to the 250th celebration in July. Mike, I had mentioned to you earlier, the former LEC site really looks good. The contractor that raised the building and has prepared the site, Marty, they've done a really nice job, and I'm really encouraged when we begin to market that property. They've done a nice job. And then, Marty, I just asked you and Renee if, because I'm not on the economic development team, if I could find some time to meet with you and Renee, maybe in the next 10 days or so, to talk about different projects. That's it.
Good job, you guys. I also want to congratulate you, Mike. Well-deserved, and looking forward to being the agents of change and pushing forward and doing what we have to do. And I've said this before, and I just want to thank Sioux City PD and what they're doing. Having a business downtown and having dealing with, it's funny. I'm the guy that's very supportive and passionate about our homeless community and unhoused and those things, but having some issues that have come up that have truly affected me. I appreciate the response, with Sioux City PD and Hart and the presence, with that heart team. And so thank you guys for what you do and continuing to do. I know Rick said that, he's heard, you can't, and the thing about homelessness is that it's, you just never know when somebody's going to be homeless. And so what that looks like and what that means for a community is so vast and big. But I know that we are diligently looking to try to clean up and just make it a better looking and inviting place for our city and community. And so thank all those that are involved and staff as well. Again, thank you guys for what you do and your response. And so, yeah.
Lots of people covered what I was going to say already. I want to congratulate Mike. He knows I've been putting pressure on him a little bit since last year, hoping that he would stay, consider it. Congratulations. I appreciate you staying on and taking on this new role, and I've already seen positive changes. Appreciate it. Keep going. One thing I want to mention as we continue to roll into this new year, lots of changes happening all the time. We have Earth Day coming up. We're going to be doing cleanup all over the city with volunteers, property owners, just teams of people, is positivity. I'd like to see us try to adopt some positivity for our city. Everybody's cities around us have things that we all want or we'd like to see happen here. And when we want those things, we're expecting businesses, employers, franchises, it could be anything, to come here and invest perhaps millions of dollars in our community so that we can have something nicer or something that we desire or something that another city has. But if we don't promote our city through our neighbors, through our job, through our social media accounts, if all we do is think and look and talk about anything that's negative, how do we expect someone else to come and invest in our community if we're not investing in our community? So I'm not proposing that everyone build a business or start a business or do anything like that, but we can all grab a plastic bag and go out and pick up trash in our neighborhood or along a street side. The city provides these orange bags, fill it up, drop it on a corner, we'll pick it up. It could be as small as that. It could be as small as mowing your lawn or your neighbor's lawn or, just being positive. It's not that hard. In fact, it's easier to find something positive than it is to dwell on the negative. So I just want us to think about that. I wrote in an article recently, if you can't be with the one you love, meaning if you can't move to a city that you think is so amazing, you got to love the one you're with. So start loving your community because your community loves you. And it will bring more wealth and more friends and more businesses to our community. It'll help us grow like we want to. I just really want to see some positivity. I really do. So if we could all work on that. With that, off my soapbox.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Berenstein?
Aye.
Bertrand? Aye. Rayford?
Aye.
Shaner?
Aye.